Gators Gamecock game last night. Good win for the Gators. Didn't play their best. South Carolina outplayed them. Sometimes that happens. Thank goodness South Carolina has a very poor guard play. I mean, they must have had 10 turnovers easily. I think they had like five in a row, but Gators found a way. Will Richard with his layup to win it. So let's go to the Titan Numerical Heartline, courtesy of Comfort Temp, and it is Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How you doing?
Well, I'm doing good. It was a tremendous night of basketball in the SEC. There were about three games, Shane, that
Yes.
basically went down to the last shot. So
Yep.
A&M had the similar situation, and Arkansas beat Georgia. That was Calipari's first SEC win at Arkansas. But you're right, the Gator game was amazing within itself. Gators went. I give South Carolina a lot of credit. I mean, they played some SEC teams strong, but the Gators stuck it out and were able to win the game for a big win. And one more basketball note: Auburn hosts Tennessee Saturday on the big game of the weekend, and that will be at Auburn. Game day will be there, so it will be a big deal. And college football is a big deal after the national championship game, Shane, as we head into the off season.
Yep, for sure. Real quick on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. Scotty says, "Don't know how long we will stay highly ranked for what I come back. I will be highly ranked. The committee or rankings don't care if you win by one or win by 30. It's so hard week in and week out, especially on the road in our league. Uh, Look, Florida didn't play a great game. They deserve to lose, but they're good enough and found a way to win. I credit them. You're not going to play great every night out. All right, Brent, as you mentioned, Ohio State Buckeyes are your national champs. Congratulations to them. But looking at the last 20 years, you do not want to be a preseason number one team.
It has not gone well, has it?
No.
There's been one national title for an AP preseason team. I believe that was Georgia, but there have been in 15 national titles in 2 through 5. So if you're rated second through fifth, your chances are much better to win the national championship. So that's why sometimes people take a dim view of preseason polls.
Yeah, for sure. All right. So in the 2025 title odds have already come out. Obviously, Ohio State is your favorite. They got the Gators in there, though.
Yep, they sure do. Georgia, Oregon, Texas, Penn State, and Alabama, Notre Dame, and Clemson are in order. They've got LSU, Ole Miss, at Tennessee at 25-1. They've got Florida at 80-1. Auburn and Miami at 50-1. So now Ohio State's 5-1, Georgia's 6-1. Oregon is 6-5, 6.5, and Texas is 7-1. So yeah, we've got a lot of odds from Vegas, and we've also got a lot of, as they say, way too early top 25s.
Yeah, and just added it up. There's nine SEC teams with the better odds to win the national title than the Gators. Not that that means a damn thing, quite honestly.
No, no.
Um, so, um, boy, there are some good openers for next year that I was not aware of.
They really are. Texas and Ohio State begin the year. That is, there are a lot of these games that are going to be kind of home and home games instead of neutral site games. Notre Dame plays at Miami to begin the year. By the way, in Notre Dame's schedule next year, Shane, they play Texas A&M, they play Arkansas, and they play Boise State.
Hmm.
So Notre Dame's schedule, after being very weak this year, it kind of revs up a little bit. LSU goes to Clemson to start the season.
Hmm.
Another difficult opener for LSU. LSU's lost about we'll get the number exactly, but it's like 5 in a row in their openers. Of course, they play some tough teams, obviously. Florida State, USC. Alabama goes to Florida State. Florida State will have the new stadium done by then. There is an Ireland game, Iowa State and Kansas State. Tennessee will play Syracuse in Atlanta. I think this is the Chick-fil-A Classic. In South Carolina, Zach, our producer, will appreciate that, plays Virginia Tech in Atlanta. So that's your two Atlanta games. Auburn at Baylor, Utah at UCLA. So, Shane, you're right on with that, brother. It's a pretty fascinating beginning of the year.
Yeah. Gator odds are 80-1 according to whatever publication that was, Circa Sports, I guess.
Yeah.
Scotty must be a new listener here on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing. He says, I see Brent Beaird has Florida pictures and Georgia pictures. Is Brent a Florida Georgia fan? Scotty, Brent is an Alabama fan. He's an Alabama guy. So, but he speaks to everybody.
Yeah, in the pictures that we have, we appreciate Zach taking care of that, or from Gator Club meetings and Georgia Club meetings. So that's your explanation.
Give us a list of the teams that didn't lose a game this year by more than a touchdown.
Yeah, this is pretty impressive. Ohio State, Penn State, BYU, Miami, Ole Miss, and Louisville. So, listen, that's a tough thing to do, isn't it, Shane? to keep every game within 7 points.
Yes, for sure. The ratings for this championship game weren't what they're used to. I have a couple thoughts on that. I think it's mainly because there was no one in the South involved. I firmly believe that. I know Ohio State and Notre Dame people have alumni scattered across the world. But I think if you have a Southern team in there, it means a little bit more.
Well, yeah, absolutely. The numbers were 22 million. I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with that. But the game last year between Washington and Michigan brought in 25 million. This year's game had a peak viewing audience of 26.1. And again, I still think some of this, Shane, is because the game's on Monday night. And I get the NFL stuff, but look, at some point, you've got fans traveling, they've got to take extra days off and all that. So at some point, they really need to look at having this game. I don't know if it's Friday night, Saturday at noon, whenever you have it, but the Monday night stuff really is. It's time for a change with that.
I agree. Just have it on Saturday night. The NFL, they're used to playing at 1 and 4 o'clock. They can play their wild card games or whatever playoff game it is at 1 and 4 and be done. And then at 8 o'clock Eastern time, have the national championship. I agree with that 100%. I don't know why they won't do it, but they need to do it at some point. Notre Dame's losing their defensive coordinator to the National Football League.
Yeah, Al Golden, who used to be at Miami as the head coach, really did a tremendous job for Notre Dame as their D coordinator, and he is going to the Bengals. Now, Shane, you would probably know more about this. He was on the staff there, right, for a while, a few years ago. And so he is going back as their D coordinator. But I give Golden a lot of credit. He reinvented himself into one of the better defensive coaches after the time at Miami. He was at Temple for a while. People might remember, but and he Shane, I know you saw him on the sidelines. I just thought Golden looked very different than what he did when he was at Miami and Temple.
Well, you got to remember he does look different because he used to be one of those goofy coaches that wore a sport coat and a damn tie on the sideline.
Yeah, maybe that was it. That's a good point.
I'm like, that's the dumbest thing for football coaches. I know Bear did it and all that, but I think it's stupid. All right, so this is really an interesting stat here about the last 3 Ohio State national championship winning quarterbacks. who they are, and what great ones never won one.
Yeah, the winning quarterbacks, Craig Krenzel, Cordell Jones, and people may have forgotten this, but Cordell Jones was Ohio State's third team quarterback and got to play the national championship game because of a lot of injuries.
Mhm.
And then Will Howard, of course, from Monday night. Now, Troy Smith, Terrell Pryor, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields, and C.J. Stroud, they did not play and win a national championship, but the other three did.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Just because you have a stud at quarterback doesn't mean you're
Right.
always going to win for some reason.
No.
Uh, Ohio State became the second team in FBS history with a 3,000-yard passer, two 1,000-yard receivers, two 1,000-yard rushers in a single season. Is LSU the other one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good guess on that one. But look, and Shane, you can tell people how rare that is. But I mean, to have all those together is almost amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is for sure. The Pouncey twins, Mike and Marquise, invite you to try the mango martinis at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, handcrafted with their JF Hayden liqueurs. Try those flavors and find your favorite at shopjfhaydens.com. We got Brent Beaird here. We'll have Mike Morgan. We'll talk Gator hoops and SEC hoops with him. He called the game last night. All right, so looking at the playoffs, I know there are a lot of people want changes. When are they going to make these decisions, and what do you think is going to happen?
Yeah, what is happening next? Now they had a "Hey, how are you?" meeting on Sunday before the national championship game. It lasted 90 minutes. They really never make any decisions during those meetings because they don't want to do anything to take away from the game itself. But they are meeting. Now, this is pretty interesting, too. The SEC and the Big Ten, the athletic directors are meeting in New Orleans on February the 19th, and they will look at several items. I tell you, one of the main reasons they're meeting is they want a guaranteed situation where the SEC and the Big Ten get 4 teams each every year. Now that's coming. It's just a matter of time. The other thing they're going to be talking about is, okay, we're at 12. Where are we going to 14 or 16? Now, there may be a tweak or two in 25 this year, but they will pretty much do and stay with the original contract. But in 26 is when a lot of this stuff's going to change. So that's what they're beginning to meet about now. And they'll be doing that in February, and they'll have meetings at different times of the year. But to make a long story short here, they continue to meet. They continue to review it. I mean, Shane, there's still a lot of things that need to be they need to be changed. There's probably way too much time in between games. I think they're going to be looking at that. They'll be looking at how many teams are involved. They're going to be looking at what do they do with the buys and all that. So suffice to say, the SEC and the Big Ten will get their way in this regardless, but they're still trying to figure out a lot of the rest of it and where they need to go, because this year was kind of a guinea pig year for them.
Yeah. Got a lot of people asking here about Florida State getting a new stadium. They're not getting a new stadium. People didn't see this. Their entire home side was gutted.
Right.
They had portable bleachers, about 25 rows, for the home fans. Their home side is going to be all chaired back and put luxury suites in. So you couldn't see it on TV, but it was a mess
Yeah.
when we were there this year. All right, Brent, let's go around the league. Alabama. Um, I mean, I, I don't know what to say, but supposedly Jalen Milroe slated to go number 2 to the Cleveland Browns.
Well, there are a lot of. Here's the thing with Milroe. Milroe will get to the combines, and he will run fast and he will jump high. He'll throw the ball 70 yards, and he'll smile his way through the interviews. He's a charming kid, and he'll do well. But the reality of this is Milroe is not a complete quarterback, meaning stretch the imagination, but somebody will fall in love with him. And he reminds me a lot of Anthony Richardson in Milton, who is at Tennessee. Got a strong arm, great athlete, but the bottom line is he's just not accurate. And I don't know if how much they can do an NFL team to help him with that. But Shane, that is really the bottom line for Milroe. Is that's the big problem.
Yeah, great kid, as you said, can articulate very well, charming, however you want to put it, extremely gifted, but he cannot play quarterback that next league. I'll stand on the table and say I'm wrong if he does, but I just don't see it happening. Okay, once again, Florida State is not adding to their stadium. They're not downsizing. They're redoing the home side. So, all right, we got a lot of people concerned about FSU Stadium. Auburn, a lot of people are excited about Jackson Arnold stepping in as their quarterback.
Yeah, and Peyton Thorne will no longer be there. And Auburn is like a lot of schools. They've got a really good freshman quarterback coming in, and Deuce Knight, who, by the way, was committed to Notre Dame. He now is committed to Auburn. They're bringing in Jackson Arnold, who is an experienced quarterback who was with Oklahoma. He threw for nearly 1,500 yards. He's a probably you would call a dual threat quarterback. He's not a great passer. He can be a good runner. And as you saw late in the year, Auburn has got a good, really sophomore receiving crew, and Bryce Kane, Cam Coleman, and Perry Thompson. To go along with that, they will not have Jarquez Hunter, who I thought was probably the best player on the team last year. He was very underutilized. Auburn got a couple of offensive tackles from the portal, so they are hoping that they will be much better next year and at least have a winning season, be able to go to a bowl game.
Yeah. Tim wants to know on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, is Ugalele coming back? No, he's gone. The quarterback now at FSU is Constellalos from Boston College, who was with Gus. It's interesting. He left Gus at UCF. Now he's back with Gus at FSU.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes.
Yeah. Andy wants to know, could Milroe be another Antoine Randall L? Randall L is quick. I mean, he's shifty. I don't know how shifty I don't think Milroe can play wide receiver. I don't think at all.
Yeah, right.
All right, what's going on with the Gators, Brent?
Well, the Harrison Bailey I thought was interesting. Coming in from the transfer portal, you've got to have a full quarterback room. Doesn't mean he's going to be QB1. It just means they'll have more depth. Dallas Wilson is expected to enroll. And also, I'd forgotten about this, but the Gator running back, Anthony Rubio, his father is Marco Rubio, who is the new Secretary of State. So, and by the way, ESPN had their way too early top 25, and the Gators are in it. So they were quite complimentary of them, even knowing that the schedule is going to be tough again.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments of the entire football season was when Marco Rubio's son, they kept feeding him the ball in the bowl game, and he broke about a 12-yard run for a touchdown, and the bench just emptied towards the end zone because I love it when the walk-ons get all the love. It was great. All right, what's going on up in Athens?
Georgia obviously is rated high in the preseason number one. Now, I'm going to throw this out here, and I'm going to almost count it as a rumor. I haven't seen it in multiple places. Buck Bellew used to play for Georgia. He was a very good quarterback for them, obviously. And there is a report that Buck has a show in Atlanta that he had mentioned that Will Muschamp, who still is on the Georgia staff, he's in an analyst role. He wanted to go off field for a while, that he won't be coming back on field. Hines Ward is not coming to Georgia. One of the more interesting, as Baloo said, was, and this was from last week, but we saved it for this week too, that Mike Bobo may be stepping down soon. Bobo obviously has been the Georgia offense coordinator a couple of times, but people may forget Bobo was at Colorado State as the head coach for a while. And so we're not sure about that. There's nothing official about that yet. But Bobo, and Shane, you know how this works. Bobo, being the offensive coordinator, has been blamed for a lot of things. A lot of it not his fault, but when you're in that role, that's where it goes. So we'll watch that and see where it goes over the next few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. Give us some nuggets, Brent.
Yeah, glad to do that. LSU predict high in the preseason polls with the way too early stuff. Garrett Nussmeier coming back, Harold Perkins coming back, the linebacker. So I think that's going to be interesting to see where that goes. It's also going to be really interesting to see how Missouri does. They don't have Brady Cook or Luther Burden, the quarterback and the wide receiver. Luther Burden will be a long time NFL receiver, I believe. I think he's that good. So that's going to be interesting. They're going to probably replace him with Bo Pribula, who came from Penn State to Ole Miss is getting a lot of love. That won't surprise you, Shane. Austin, I'm curious what you think about Austin Simmons.
Well, he's talented. I mean, we haven't seen him play a whole lot because obviously
right.
Jackson Dart's been the guy, but he stepped in a couple of times when he had to and played well, but he's going to put up huge numbers in Lane's offense.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Princely U is off to the NFL. He's got a brother, Prince, that is he's going to come in. South Carolina, and deservedly so, is getting a lot of love. I think we'll see Lenore Sellers in some of the Heisman ballots early on as they look at that. South Carolina, I mean, they've got, Mike Shula is going to be their offensive coordinator. Also, Tennessee have got Nico's coming back. Mike Matthews is coming back. They do lose Dylan Sampson, James Pierce. Squirrel White, by the way, is going to Florida State. Texas, Omari Niblick left Alabama, going to Texas. Now he's going to A&M. How about that, Shane? Going from Texas to Texas A&M. And by the way, if you're an ACC fan, the schedule comes out Monday. Next Monday will be the schedule reveal for ACC schools on the 27th. And again, Florida State will not have a spring game. This is something we've talked about all morning because of the construction on the stadium. And Shane, you were there and saw it, and it's not much better now. But they've decided not to have the spring game and take a chance with fans walking all over the place with that too. There's a lot of love for Clemson. Kate Klubnik returns, and they've really got a pretty good team. As we mentioned, they'll be playing and opening the season with LSU, Miami, after a really good season last year. Obviously, Cam Ward's gone, Jalen Rivers is gone, quarterback and offensive lineman Xavier Restapro, Mark Fletcher comes back, Jordan Lyle at running back. Both those guys will be very interesting to see what Carson Beck does there too, to say the least. So, Shane, just a little bit of the stuff that's going on in the college football world.
Yeah, real quick, got a text here from Gator Guy. It says it's interesting to see Mizzou and Ohio State with coaches that were the play callers give up the play calling, and then the team sees great success. I used to agree with you that it was our defense, but the defense showed up big time last year. if you go back and you really crunch it and watch the game, our defense, we were fortunate. Anyway, I believe we were on an offensive coordinator away from being a possible playoff team. Giving up play calling duties will allow Billy to see the big picture more and help out in other areas. I'll go on record to say this probably won't happen, but again, I think this could cause us not to reach our ceiling. I will say this. They were ready to run Chip Kelly's ass out of Ohio State this
They
year.
were.
Okay.
They were. Yes.
Look, I don't care if we hire an offense coordinator. I don't care if we have a defense coordinator. I don't care about it. I want us to win. But I can promise you, because I try to look at the entire big picture, even though it's my team, and this goes with every football team. It does not matter who is calling the plays. People are going to bitch and complain regardless of the situation.
Yes.
That is a fact, right? Because everybody thinks their team should score on every possession and should be explosive and do this. But I also say Ohio State has 3 first-round wide receivers and probably 2 first-round running backs.
Yes,
So
they
they're
do.
pretty damn talented. But anyway, I understand where people are talking about, but my biggest concern is still defense. I know we played better the last 4 or 5 games, but if you look at it, we gave up way too many yards, and we got very fortunate. And that is part of football. If you look at Notre Dame, I don't care if they play for the national title, I do not think they're a great football team. They were a fortunate football team that's well coached, and the ball bounced their way. They led the nation in turnover margin. That
Right.
allows you to win games when you are not very good. So that's my personal opinion, and we'll leave it at that.
And Shane, may I add, Notre Dame, Ohio State were the number 1 and number 2 teams in the nation in points allowed per game. So defense matters very much.
Yes, for sure. Reggie says if you read the Ohio State message boards, they still want Chip Kelly gone even after their national title win. Yeah, that's my point right there. They
Yeah,
win a
that's a great
national
point.
title. They still want to fire the offense coordinator. They still want to fire the head coach. Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever going to be satisfied because nothing works out perfect. Nothing ever works out perfect. You don't throw perfect games in football ever. Brent, good stuff as always, my man. Stay warm, and we'll talk to you next week.
Good. Can't wait, bud. Take care. Thanks so much.
All right. That's our college football analyst and Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird, joins us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tim. Let's get to this day in sports real quick. Brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life. Campus USA Credit Union. 1994 AFC Championship game. The Buffalo Bills beat the Kansas City Chiefs 30-13. And the 94 NFC Championship game at Texas Stadium in Irving, Texas, the Cowboys beat the Niners 38-21. And that was another one of those where the Buffalo loses in the Super Bowl. We'll see if they get there this year. We're going to take a quick timeout, come back. We'll be joined by Mike Morgan from the SEC Network, who called the Gators game last night, get his thoughts on the Gator win and everything else in college basketball. You're watching and listening to PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the International Diamond Center Studios. We'll be right back.
Our premium sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union,
International Diamond Center,
Meldon Law, QC Kinetics, Dave & Buster's, UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine Institute, JF Hayden Craft Liqueurs, Bishop's Pitmaster Barbecue, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Los Linderos Tequila. Gridiron sponsors are Baker Sporting Goods, Cogent Bank, Comfort Temp, Electronics World, Florida Victorious, Gallo Car Wash, Miapa Latin Cafe, Peachland Dental, Quality Plumbing, Ruse Ogre State Farm, Silverback Concrete, 84 Lumber, Big Mills Cheesesteak, Celebrate Primary Care, Dowling Sign, Gator Bait Media, Gator Dominoes, Ironwood Golf Course, Okido America, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, UF Bookstores, Nest and Wow, MG&A Wealth Management. Watch and listen to us live on Facebook and YouTube. Listen to the podcast whenever on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. To become a sponsor, call my man Freddie at 352-284-3733.
I'm tired of you living in pain, and I want you to get real lasting relief from chronic pain in your knees, back, shoulders, and hips. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with cutting-edge regenerative treatments with no drugs, no downtime, and no surgery. Stop putting it off. Call now and schedule your free consultation. Call QC Kinetics now in Gainesville, Ocala, and the Villages. 352-400-4550. 352-400-4550.
Naysayers, setbacks, injuries. Life throws a lot of hurdles your way. The key is just keep jumping them.
Welcome back to the International Diamond Center Studios. Rue's Ogre State Farm Office is a team of dedicated insurance professionals ready to help life go right with the right insurance options for you and your family. Visitogreinsurance.com. Give them a call, 352-240-1779. Back to the Titan and More hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. It's our man, Mike Morgan from the SEC Network, who was on the call of the big Gator comeback last night. What's up, my buddy?
How you doing, Shane? How's everybody feeling out there?
I think the Gator Nation is that, well, a lot of people like we won't be highly ranked team. Who cares? They found a way to win. They didn't play great. South Carolina just dominated the boards. They got to every loose ball, but Gators went to their little full court press, and it really wasn't a press.
Yeah.
The Gamecocks couldn't handle it. They just threw it right to us half the time.
That was unreal. I haven't seen I've seen comebacks and you blow a lead, a team comes out there and they do like an elaborate pressure, which, like you said, there wasn't anything that sophisticated about it. And Florida doesn't do that. Like, that's not a big part of what they do on defense, but they had to do something. So they had to heat them up, and they heated them up. And, South Carolina does not have their starting point guard, Jamari Thomas, who's injured. And quite frankly, he has struggled a bit too. He's the former MEAC player of the year, but some of those things that worked in the MEAC haven't been working in the SEC. So they have to go to the backup point guard, and he just doesn't look like a point guard, honestly. The level of but it wasn't just him. I wouldn't put it all on one guy. I mean, they had a number of guys just make ridiculously bad passes. Florida was opportunistic about it, but give Florida credit because they never panicked. And I thought the one that's making all the highlights that's on social media is obviously the final drive, right? And it's a great take, and it's Condon, kind of, it's almost like the equivalent of a pick play in football, right?
Yeah.
You use your body to shield the defender. That helps pave the way. It's a legal play, 100% legal play. It's smart basketball. But the play out of the timeout from Todd Golden, where they go from one corner.
And this hammer play or whatever people call it.
Yeah. And you set the screen on the opposite side. The pass goes from one corner to the other corner to set up the open three. That's great coaching. And then give Will Richard credit, because I've always thought Will Richard has a pretty looking shot. I can't believe the numbers aren't better, but he has not been great this year from distance, but he hit the clutch three. So I thought that was actually the biggest play of the game offensively to help set up the game-winning shot. And then you alluded to the defense.
Yeah, and I said I've always thought Will Richards kind of the guy that I know Walter Clayton's the focal point of this team, and the demeanor and the way Elijah Martin plays now has that tough football mentality. But Will Richard, to me, because he's such a great rebounder for a so-called guard,
right,
and he's just. Last night, to me, he looked like he was a step faster than everybody else on the floor. They talk about that bounce or, how quick, you can go up for rebounds and things of that nature. He just looked I thought he played his best game I think I've ever seen him play.
He was great off the bounce. There was I use this term a lot for last night's game, really for both sides. There is another blow by. In other words, the guard just blows right by the defender, which is what happened on the final play, which was what happened on a number of plays in that game where you put the defender on skates, and there's nothing fancy about it. The final shot, of course, is with the left hand. Let's not forget that. I mean, this is why you start teaching kids at an early age. You got to be able to go left. They're going to take away your right. So I love to see that. As just kind of a fan of fundamental basketball. But yeah, Richard's a wild card, and that was the other brilliant thing about that play call is that I'm sure out of the timeout, South Carolina is thinking, let's not let Walter Clayton or Elijah Martin beat us. Those two guys in particular. Well, that leaves Will Richard. That's the third guy, and he's been kind of the third option from that great guard trio, and he comes through in the clutch with a huge shot and a memorable comeback. Shane, we had 3 games last night in the SEC where the team that won trailed almost the entire game. Florida trailed all but like 5 seconds of the game, 4-point whatever. A&M, that's how they won the game. They trailed the entire game. They won on a last-second shot. And then Arkansas, they trailed the entire game, and they wind up winning it at the end. It was a weird, weird night of SEC basketball. I know Peter Burns said in the 11 years on the SEC network, it's the most exciting that he's ever seen with the trio games we had, and ours was certainly right up there with that in terms of just bizarreness and then an unbelievable finish by Florida.
Yeah, I agree. David on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, says, Mike, do you agree with me that this team is elite and is grinding through January just like everyone else?
I agree with the second part, without question. And look, to one of your other listeners that chimed in and was kind of upset, this is the same South Carolina team that had Auburn beat.
Yeah.
And that Auburn game, Janai Broome was healthy for most of it. Carolina went toe-to-toe with them. So don't feel like, it's an embarrassment to go on the road and struggle to beat the winless Gamecocks. There are no gimmies in this league. I know that sounds cliche. I get it. And Florida should beat South Carolina, yes. But you are going to see upsets. No one's going to go undefeated, and I don't think anybody is going to be 0-18. This is a character-building win. And I think if you can ever find a positive of a game like this where you don't play your best, where you get outplayed in the front court, I thought Condon and Houck, quite honestly, were beat up a little bit, which I was surprised, quite frankly. Now, I know Murray Boyles is terrific, but a couple of the other guys, that to me, I need to see Condon and Houck be more of a factor in a game like this, because you're going to get into another game like this in the NCAA tournament. It's not going to be a bunch of finesse teams that you go up against. You're going to wind up against a Big East or Big Ten team that will muck it up like South Carolina does, that will bleed the shot clock 20 to 30 seconds every possession, and will take you out of the things you love to do. And we know Florida loves to do what? They love to play up tempo. They love a high-scoring game because they've got a lot of weapons. But this is the kind of game that you're going to see a lot of come March.
Yeah. Tony on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, says, comeback was incredible. I got to chat with Mike and Mark Wise after the game.
Yeah, I finally saw Tony. The man, the myth, the legend made the trip. There were a few Florida fans that made the journey to Columbia, South Carolina. But it was very cool. I feel like I know the PodUp family. I like to think I'm a part of this PodUp family, even though I don't get to see a lot of the folks out there that tune into this show. But it was great to meet you, Tony, and I hope to see some of the other PodUppers in the near future.
Yeah, looking at the SEC, bunch of people have been chiming in, want to know kind of where you have the Gators in the rankings in the Southeastern Conference. I think most people right now, it's Auburn and Alabama. And, you got Tennessee in there. I think Florida's in the upper tier, but Alabama and Auburn are probably playing better than anyone else.
No argument there, which is still weird as someone who's been calling SEC basketball for 22 years for me to say the top 2 teams in the league are from the state of Alabama. What planet are we on, right? I mean, that's just ridiculous. But I will say there's not a huge degree of separation between Auburn, Alabama, and then I would certainly put Florida, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Those five to me, and I might have to add A&M, even though sometimes they're hard to watch. But they grind out games, man. Nobody wants to play. Playing A&M is like playing that SEC football team that beats you up. Even if you win, it hinders you for the following week because they're so damn physical. I mean, nobody wanted to play Alabama because the game after that, 6-7 days after that, you were going to be hurting. That's what playing A&M is like. So they might be right up there, but I think there's that top 5 or 6. And then I think there's a line of demarcation. And then you have the Ole Misses, the Mississippi States. I already mentioned A&M. Georgia, we'll see. I'm doing the game Saturday. Georgia now has to steal one, I think, at some point. And you're going to get that team's best shot on Saturday. But I think no doubt Auburn, Alabama may have a little separation, but I think Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee are right there for those top 5 in this league that are going to be either 1, 2, or 3 seeds in the NCAA tournament and are going to be very tough outs.
I may have asked you this before, and I can't remember if I did or not, but Arkansas finally got a conference win last night. It was kind of a comeback. Georgia was ahead by a lot, I believe, at halftime. I went to bed, but Calipari, first of all, what are the Arkansas faithful, what do they feel about Calipari right now, having only one win? But X's and O's wise, Mike, I don't think he's very good.
Here's what I'll say. Cal does not want to change what he does. And I had one SEC coach say, Cal's good and all, but he's the easiest coach to prepare for because he's been around so long. And everybody knows, you're never going to see a zone. That's just not what Cal does. So, while other teams will surprise you out of a timeout, go with a 1-2-2, go with a 2-3, go with some half-court trapping, that's just not what Cal does. And everybody knows it. And people are pretty familiar with what they do on offense. And so right now, Kentucky fans, there's a really interesting thing going on. I don't know if you guys have been following this. Kentucky fans are just overwhelmed with joy because they finally just had enough. And so they are rooting for Cal to fail. Meanwhile, there's some people in the media that are very close with Cal that are like, wait a minute, why are you getting all mad? Why don't you just worry about your team, celebrate Mark Pope in Kentucky? Why are you having to? And then the media in Kentucky is like, hey, we'll do whatever we want. If we want to be happy that our guy is gone and we're, so it's kind of crazy, but there's no question Arkansas has a chance to be the most disappointing team in this league because there is talent. Now, Boogie Fland being out, that's a major blow, but he brought a ton of talent from Lexington and Boogie, who was originally a Kentucky signee or recruit, and I think everybody rightfully thought Arkansas was going to be very good. So it's not been a great start for Cal. I think year 2 in Fayetteville is going to be huge in terms of how that fan base responds to him.
Yeah. Text on the Titan Mart text line from Kevin says, great call last night, Mike. Did you think UF even had a chance last night? What impressed me last night was the amount of pick sixes.
Yeah. Kevin, thank you so much for the kind words. And that's exactly what we called him on the broadcast last night. Anytime I can infuse a football analogy, I like doing that because I know our viewers, your SEC fans, you love college football. And that's what that is. A live ball turnover is a pick six. And you can live with turnovers. They're part of the game. Guy throws the ball too far high or wide, it's out of bounds. A guy dribbles or he has a traveling, that's a turnover. But when you just throw it to the other team and you have explosive guards like Clayton and Martin and Richard, that's a pick six. It's a pick two. So to the other question, one thing about Florida, they hung around the entire game. There were points of that game where Carolina could have gone up by 20. But Florida just kept chipping away, and this is a character to Todd Golden and this team. And this is the great thing about having veteran guards. They don't panic. And Florida never panicked throughout that game. Not much was going right. The crowd was definitely into the game. I was impressed. The student section had over 5,000 people there. I hope we see that kind of crowd on Saturday. I believe it's a sellout at the O-Dome. But yeah, it's a gut check character win. And so no, I'm not shocked because I'm just watching. And every time Carolina had a chance to put them away and had Florida on the ropes, you let them back in there with the turnovers.
What time's the game Saturday?
I want to say 3:30.
3:30 game. All right.
I believe that's right. Don't quote me on that.
Uh,
If somebody shows up to 3:30 and they've already played the game, send your hate mail to Shane Matthews.
that's right. That's right. Let's switch gears. The national title game Monday night. I mean, Ohio State, boy, they're a skilled football team. Anything surprise you from that game?
It kind of felt like the same movie, Shane, like the Brian Kelly Notre Dame teams that get to the championship game of the BCS or the college football playoff, and then you watch the Ohio State's basically an SEC team with SEC talent, right? You watch them, and then you watch Notre Dame, and you look at the two, and one is not like the other. Notre Dame still is not there. They
No.
got better. I must say, physically, they got some dudes on defense this year that resemble like the kind of guys you would see on those Georgia and Alabama teams, but they're not there yet. And Riley Leonard's a nice player,
Can't throw.
but exactly. He's a great basketball player of the state of Alabama that Duke found, kind of a diamond in the rough, and he's electric with his legs. But I know you're in agreement with me on this, Shane. If you're going to win a national title, you got to make some big throws. And it's really hard to just be an athlete and play quarterback and not be able to make big throws. And they were not able to make them. And then the obvious one, like we all love the coach, and he got a lot of love and fanfare, and he should. But how you don't go for it on 4th and goal with 7.5 minutes or so in the fourth quarter, down to two touchdowns,
That made no sense.
that made absolutely no. And that's been the one knock on him is time management, is strategy down the stretch. That has been the knock on him in his short tenure at Notre Dame. And if you're a head coach, like I don't understand coaches that don't have time management skills because most of these guys aren't calling plays anymore, right? I mean, Billy Napier is a lone wolf McQuaid. Most of them, you got an OC, you got a DC. What I need you to do is know the strategy down the stretch with the clock and the situation on 4th down.
I have the solution to that problem for every coach in America.
Okay, bring it.
You hire an established backup quarterback that played in
Yes.
the National Football League for years because that's what they do.
Have
They're-
you sent in your resume?
No, I would love to do it, but my time has passed, right? But I'm saying a guy who has played 8 or 9, 15 years as the backup because the backup on almost every NFL team is another coach and he understands situational football.
Right.
And I'm dead serious about that because it's not hard. It's the same way with this stupid ass analytics. Sometimes these coaches, I'm doing the math in my head. Why are you going for 2? Because if you don't make it, now it's
Right.
a three possession game.
Oh, that's
It's
the other one.
stupid.
That's the other the going for 2 at the absolute worst moment in time is something I see at the big time college level and the NFL level, and it drives me crazy. I start yelling at the TV. I become old man yelling at the clouds. I don't even care who wins. I'm just like, what are you thinking? This makes no sense. And to your point, I still remember Herm Edwards, who's a great soundbite, but was never a great coach no matter where he went. But he had to hire, when he was with the Jets, a time management coach. It was the first guy to do it, and I thought it was smart. Like, you're not good at that. Hire somebody to do it. We have all these analysts and all this payroll to hire. Everybody's got a job to do. Just hire somebody that, like you said, just put on a hat, have a clipboard, and your one job is to do that. I'm right there with you.
Very simple. Andy's question for you on Facebook Live brought to you by Mel Law. After 10 ballots, how gratifying was it to see your guy Billy Wagner make the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, really good. I actually posted a picture of me and Billy when I was with the Braves, my first year on the final day of the season, he clinched. They asked me to go into after doing the post game show, the locker room and interview with the guys. And Billy was one of those guys. 422 career saves, a little lefty. I mean, he couldn't have been all but 5'10", but he brought the heat, and he was electric and consistent. That's what you need out of a closer. You need a guy who's consistently great, not one that just throws 100 miles an hour and gives up a bunch of untimely bombs. Really happy for him. And there's still a couple other guys that belong in the Hall that are not there. I will continue to wave the flag for guys like Dale Murphy. If Harold Baines is a Hall of Famer, Dale Murphy sure as hell is a Hall of Famer, and Andrew Jones is sure as hell a Hall of Famer. So I don't get all that sometimes.
Yeah. Mike says, exactly, Mike. And that's what Billy is not good at, in-game time management. Look, he ain't the only one, is my point.
We almost went a whole segment, Shane Matthews, without a
Right.
Billy Napier critique.
I can't tell you, watching the National Football League playoffs, how many screw-ups have happened from time management
Yeah.
and those type of things. I think the problem is a lot of our listeners, they watch just the Gators.
Yeah.
They don't watch other games because
Right,
it's just
right.
like we have people. I got a million texts here complaining about the basketball team last night. And I'm like, y'all must not watch college basketball because
Yeah.
Connecticut has lost games and not played great. I mean, it happens. You're
Iowa
not going to play
State.
great.
Yeah. No, it especially on the road in a league like the SEC. Hey, you want me to fan the flames just here? I'll just say something just to get everybody fired up on your show and just to watch you become impatient with the text messages coming in, because I love to see you get a little bit rattled in your chair there. Well, if Billy Napier if he had an offensive coordinator, Shane, then he wouldn't have to worry so much. He could handle just clock management, right?
Exactly. But like I told the people earlier, what the offensive coordinator, the Ohio State University, was about run out of town middle of the season.
Yeah.
Named Chip Kelly, right?
Yeah.
So I tell people it doesn't matter if Coach Spurrier came back and called plays. On Mondays, people are going to be bitching and complaining about this, that, and the other, right?
Right. Well, if Billy had a Jeremiah Smith on the outside, I mean, when asked for a prediction on that game, I said Ohio State, and I said this is my kindergarten analysis. The best athlete on the field will be lined out wide at wide receiver for Ohio State, and I'm going to put my money. I didn't actually gamble, but I'm going to put my money on the team that's got the best athlete on the field. And sure enough, that's what they had, and he made the biggest plays.
Yeah, he was outstanding. To my point, Mark says here on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, and somebody that can count to 11, right? Because we've had those. But hey, I guess one of the biggest plays in the Lions-Redskins game the other night was fourth down. What happened? The Detroit Lions had 12 guys on the field, automatic first down.
I know. And you just again, wonder how that happens at that level. Those are professionals.
Right. So that's my point, is it happens everywhere.
Right.
If you watch. Mike, great stuff as always. You're on the call against Georgia.
Yeah.
Obviously, we'll have you on next week. But what game? Do you know what games you got next week?
Where am I going? I think I'm going to LSU. I haven't been to LSU all year. I think I have LSU, Texas, if I'm not mistaken, and I haven't had Texas. So those are the only two teams I have not seen in person this year, and they've both struggled, quite frankly. Texas finally got its first win. LSU has been kind of hot and cold, but the one I'm really excited about will be Florida, Georgia. I had that game last year in Athens, and I think again, I mean the white story's been done. We're not gonna every time Georgia plays Florida, hey, it's the return. We're not gonna get into all that. That's been done to death. It's like when Spurrier was at South Carolina. By the fifth time they played one another, you can stop saying, hey, it's Steve Spurrier coaching his alma mater. But I do think it's got the potential to be a really good game.
Yeah, I think people don't realize Mike White's got he's got a lottery pick on his squad.
Asa Newell is special. Great point. Asa Newell against Condon and Houck and Chinulu. That's going to be a fun matchup to watch.
Be safe, my friend.
You got it.
We'll talk to you next week.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
That's Mike Morgan from the SEC Network. Join us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. There are many car washes in Gainesville, but only one Gallo Car Wash, locally owned by UF alum, and the only car wash that provides NIL opportunities to Gator athletes, with locations on Northwest 13th Street, Southwest Williston Road, and soon coming to Jonesville. Appreciate everybody chiming in. Again, thanks to Brent and Mike. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow. Take care.